What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Honor the Land. I am Max Loeb. Loeb's leads here with Chef Zay right before the Philadelphia Eagles host the Cleveland Browns on Sunday, October 13th. Sunday the 13th, not Friday the 13th, but I think we both agree it could be Friday the 13th for the Cleveland Browns in Philly. Tough game coming up. How are you feeling about the initial reactions, initial prognosis of this game, Zay?
Numb. I
No.
don't even. I really can't even muster up words. I've been Sergeant Stutter trying to come up with takes. Like I just can't put together what is 1-4 right now, and desperation. I'm numb to any loss. If we lose again, I don't think it's gonna hurt any more than these other four losses have hurt. This was supposed to be the easy part of the schedule, and now we're going into a nightmare gauntlet. So, I just need to see. I need the offense to score. Like if anything, if we're gonna lose with 30 points, please.
Yeah.
That at least give me something to grasp with. So, that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I am like not looking for moral victories, but that is what I'm looking for this week too. This Eagles defense is bad. It's bad. I've never seen a defense like go out there, miss as many tackles as they do, and like actively sabotage each other on the field. Like it's bad. It's really bad. Even looking at the Raiders defense without Max Crosby, I think this is the worst defense the Browns have played so far this year. So they can't score 20 here, not even 30, 20. They can't score 20 here. I don't know what the hell you do. But this Eagles defense is going to struggle, especially through the air. And I mean, that's what the Browns are going to have to do. We just talked about the injury report. Nick Chubb's been limited the past couple of days. Would be shocked if he played, but you keep an eye out for that. And then obviously, Deontay Foreman's dealing with the ankle injury. Everything just points to Deshaun Watson throwing the ball 40 times. What does that look like? I don't know. I think we're all scared for that, but I think that's the direction it's going. Before we talk about anything in the matchup with the Eagles, is there any sense of hope? Is there any way the Browns can pull this off? And if there is, what is it?
Vegas. Like, let's be real. Like, I mean, the stuff that we saw last night on display, if that's any indication of how this is gonna go, um, Mason, we all know where that's going, right? Like how crazy that was. Over under set at 80. Like I'm going that route. I can't give you much else, Max. I'm sorry. Like I want to be that guy. It's hard for me until I see it on the field. That's the only reason. That's the one thing that we can really grasp onto and be like, Vegas is sitting there looking at that, but like that meme behind a tree.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, trap game. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to go out there and shock a lot of people. And I mentioned it when we were before we got on about the energy that I saw from Deshaun Watson. If he carries that into this week and he's still seeming like there's a glimmer of hope, it's a perfect opportunity to be like, hey, I still got it a little bit. Give me another week. So we gotta hope for anything at this point, brother.
Yeah, I'm with you. I also don't think it can get worse than last week. Maybe that's just me thinking it. I do think Eagles Commanders very comparable in terms of the talent of the team, but like there's no way it can get worse than last week, too. Like you're gonna sit there on your couch Sunday, watch this game. Maybe they win, maybe they lose. But it's almost impossible to expect a worse product than what you saw in Washington. I don't think it's possible.
I mean, it's always possible because it didn't get as bad as it was until. I mean, no, it gets worse if our defense doesn't hold. Like that's where it could get worse if our defense falls apart in the first half and they don't come out in the second half. Oh man, it can. You may look over one of these days and be like, did these dudes just put a 50 on us? Like that's how bad I think it could get. But
Mm.
every week, you know what I mean? As much as you look at the box score, you be like, what are you talking about? The defense has given up 34 points. The defense has given up 20 to the Raiders and 21 to the Giants and 33 to Dallas. What do you mean? I mean, the offense hasn't done anything to give them any benefit of the doubt in terms of keeping points off the board. They're
Mhm.
creating turnovers these past 2 weeks. So if this defense crumbles in the first half and doesn't give you anything in the second, while your offense continues to go 4 plays for 10 yards in a minute 30, this can become Nightmare on Elm Street times 10.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't, but you're right, it could. I think that this is a week where, again, it's a much more favorable matchup for the Browns offense. I don't know if you could say they have an advantage over the Eagles defense, but it's a much more favorable matchup. So hopefully you do avoid those 4 play 10-yard drives, which have, I mean, it's been every single week virtually, except I don't even know except for the Jacksonville game, because there were still some bad drives in the Jacksonville game, but there's enough offensively, I think the Browns can do through the air to avoid those situations. I'm not even talking about them scoring touchdowns, just to avoid putting your defense in bad situations. I think this is going to be a moderately high scoring game, but the battle of field position is going to have to be won by the Browns this game, because there's going to be a couple possessions strung back and forth where the Eagles are struggling offensively, the Browns are struggling offensively, and it's going to be a punt fest. If Bajorquez can put a couple more inside the 5, which is crazy to even say that and expect that. He's playing so well that you kind of do expect a good punt or two a game to literally give the Browns a chance for a safety. That's where hope for points is coming for right now, a safety, which is crazy. But it's going to be a field position battle in the sense that there will be stretches where the offenses run dry. I think, one, the Browns defense is just that good or can be that good, but also the Browns offense has struggled so much where those field position battles, the mini battles within the game, are going to be huge. But this has to be a game where the Browns at least do enough offensively to just not screw your defense over.
I was gonna say, this is a back to the basics game. Sometimes you talk about not being okay with settling for 3 and needing to get the 7. I think you are at a point of the year and at a point of the offense where you have, at this point, if you can get 3, get it. If you can get 2 and on the safety with the Bajorquez, get, like, every point is so valuable. If that means letting Dustin Hopkins going out there and kicking a 58-yarder, coach, who's been, like, letting the man go out there and do it, because at the end of the day, you have to lean on this defense. At the very least, that the defense, you're telling the defense, hey, we ain't been putting up points. I mean, Dustin Hopkins is probably top 5 best player on our team right now, the way that the season's been panning out. So you putting the ball in your best foot cans at this point, and I think the defense can respect that, and we've seen them come out down 21-3.5 and get you a turnover to put your offense in position. So back to the basics, man. Just get any points you can, no matter how you get it.
I'm curious now. You mentioned Dustin Hopkins being a top 5 player on the team right now. Who are your top 5 Cleveland Browns on the team right now? I'm very curious.
Well,
It's
I
tough.
think there's 3 in cement right now. That's Myles Garrett, JOK, and Bojorquez. I think those 3 undoubtedly have been unbelievable. I think Denzel Ward is also in that category as well. He's been spectacular. And I think the 5th best player, you might have to go. Man, this is tough. I don't know if there's anybody that jumps off of the chart. Oh, but he's been injured. Jordan Hicks. I would go Jordan
Ooh.
Hicks.
Okay, Jordan
He's
Hicks is the 5th. Okay,
he's
interesting.
been the impact that he had in the win, the impact that he had after that, the leadership that he's brought, the hole that he filled, which was Taki. I think him not being there, he's been definitely one of the better players on the team. So I'll give it to Jordan Hicks on that
I am totally with you in the top 4: Myles, JOK, Ward, Bajorquez. I'll tell you this. It could be Hicks, it could be Dalvin Tomlinson,
one.
it could be Dustin Hopkins. There is not one offensive player that just entered my mind. Not one
Not
offensive
one, bro.
player. Like, if I had to pick one, probably Jerry Judy.
Jerry.
But even the talent he has now pales in comparison to the impact that those defensive players and special teams players are having. Like, it's insane. Highest paid offense in the NFL,
180 million.
How does that happen?
There's some sort of disconnect between the triangle. It's like this triangle offense of Kevin Stefanski, Dorsey, and Watson, and then Watson with your compadres, which is your offensive line. I know you saw the graphic of the offensive line and how putrid it's been and how bad it's been.
Yeah.
And then you look at that and it's like, how can you even win with this? Like, you cannot like Deshaun Watson at all. But if this is what you're getting from your offensive line, it doesn't matter who's behind there. The avatar could be back there moving earth, wind, and fire. You ain't gonna be able to do nothing with that type of protection. So it's a tough spot to be in, but honestly, there's no excuse. You put this much money into the offense; these are professionals. You put the responsibility on your coaches to go out there and make the right hire to put these guys in position. And unfortunately, the area that was a staple for decades, for at least a decade minimum, has now become the crumble to which is this project, because they were the foundation, and now it's gone. And it blows my mind even more knowing that three of the guys that have been here is still here and it's not working. That is a little puzzling to me
Yeah.
with Posick, Joel, and Teller.
Yeah, gosh, it's such a good point. The offensive line has been the backbone of this team, and all of a sudden you kind of invest outside of the offensive line. I'm not going to say neglect the offensive line because you had a great season out of DeJuan Jones last year. You've had pretty steady guard play. Health of your tackles has been an issue, but like a decent tackle situation in the past. But you put your money elsewhere, you put your focus elsewhere, works out defensively because the JOK extension was great. You have Ward, Emerson, and Greg Newsome. Like the defensive investments are great, but you just swing and a miss in a big way offensively. And you're looking at a team that we are sitting here on a Friday talking about scoring points by kicking field goals and getting safeties. How crazy is that?
I told you, man, last episode, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year we'd be 1-4 and haven't put over 18 points, I'd be bald right now, bro. It's just it truly is unbelievable where we are, and it could make for a great storybook ending. This team has always been its best when number one we've been an underdog, and number two everyone has counted us out. The only thing that's different this year than other past years, you don't see the same rah-rah. You don't see the same confidence boost from the players like you did. The players were embracing it. Count us out if you won't. Don't jump back on. Yeah, and we just still like it was a different mentality and a different swag last year. And that's the only thing that I noticed this year. So maybe a win will spark that again. And if you can string together two, I think you'll see it. But it starts this week with Philly.
A win has to spark it. Something has. I don't even know if a win could spark. Well, a win could spark it. I don't even know if it needs to be a win. I think it needs to be an offensive performance that you can write home about. We haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen the signature offensive performance. We've seen signature drives, not performances, though. You got to string them together. That's such a good point with the attitude and the swagger because, like, I think back to last year, it was push us to the side, count us out if you want. We're going to play our brand of defensive football. We're going to take advantage of matchups offensively, and we're going to say, I don't care what you're lining up in defensively. We're going to air it out. Come stop us. That mentality, that swagger has been non-existent. We talked about it before we even started recording. The whole attitude of Deshaun Watson that we've seen throughout the year. Amari Cooper is very mild-mannered. Like he doesn't, go out and say things in the media. He's not super loud, outspoken. That's Nick Chubb's MO too. Like nobody on that team right now has been that rah-rah guy. In the past, it's been David Njoku. And it's hard to talk. It's hard to be that rah-rah guy when you're 1-4. But even him, like he's been hurt. He hasn't been in the media much. He hasn't had that opportunity. And Jerry Jeudy's probably, again, the most polarizing, best player you have offensively right now. He's not getting that much media attention to begin with. Like there is no reason for us as fans or anybody watching the Browns on the outside to believe there's any type of offensive confidence or swagger. There is
You know,
zero reason to believe it.
it goes back a couple years ago when I talked about Andrew Berry and the way that he orchestrated the people in the building. It wasn't the right people in the building. And then over the course of the next couple years, it panned out and you got a lot of great people in the room. But
Yeah.
what I've noticed now over the years, and they always talk about it in the press conferences and everything, that they take the people aspect into these accounts more that like as much as the business aspect is of it, the people side is equally important.
Hmm?
I think right now this team has been built off of personality. You're missing a certain personality in this locker room that needs to ignite it. When you plug Jim Schwartz in here, it was a breath of fresh air. It was a fuel that this team had never seen. It was a personality that fit exactly with the players that you implemented into this locker room. You plug in a Joe Flacco that mixes with the I don't give a that the defense was mixed with the I don't give a everything. It fits so perfectly. And then you got this guy, Deshaun Watson, who is completely polar opposite of the I don't give a. He's trying to prove a point. He's trying to do this stuff. And in reality, it's like, I just don't know if the personalities that is the leader of this locker room right now is what this team needs, because you're not getting it from your offensive coordinator, you're not getting it from your coach, You're not getting it from your quarterback. You're damn sure not getting it from your offensive line. David Njoku isn't as vocal as he once was last year. So the personality, the identity is the personality. That's what it is. We're sitting here trying to figure out what is our identity. It's the personality of our team. And until we can tap back into what we were best at last year, we were so swag. Man, everybody was swagged out last year, bro.
Yeah,
So it's not
everyone.
like there was a different identity. We weren't running the ball. We instantly turned into a air it out team with Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
No, it was the personality that you put into this locker room and it meshed. I think that's what our identity is, and we need to get back to it.
I can promise you the personality is in that locker room right now.
Oh, it is.
He wears number 5. It's the reality of it. You don't think so?
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I think if you were, I think this is where you have to put yourself in Jimmy Haslam's shoes, right? In the organization's shoes, not as a fan, but as a business owner. At the end of the day, the NFL is a business, an entertainment business. You spent $2 billion on this organization. I think obviously he's reaped more of the benefits throughout this past 5 years in this 10-year tenure or 12-year tenure, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if Jimmy Haslam has already been on record once talking about he was too involved in it and all of this stuff, and then there's more reports that he was the one that basically pulled the trigger on the $230 million. And now it seems as if your coach and GM are being held hostage in this situation. You're going to do everything in your power. If you just spent $230 million on an investment, you're not going to give it up without exalting every avenue, and you're gonna have that type of power control. And I've been seeing a lot of people talk about the well, why would you sign up for that? I think you know, I'm trying to tie this back into Jameis. I think you're right. Jameis signed up for this, but I also think he knew what could be. It's a
Yeah.
matter of just waiting, essentially. And I think that's what it was with Andrew Berry. Why would you sign up for it? Because I'm an Ivy League guy who this is exactly what I am an expert at, managing a situation that's been given. You give me a task and I'll execute it to the best of my abilities. They've signed up for the perfect gig. They just didn't. They just don't know how to handle the other aspect of the NFL's operation of it. So I think Jameis Winston's time is a matter of time.
Yeah.
And I, honestly, I think it's a long process before you get to that, but we'll see some sort of change, whether it be this week or the next week if we lose. So
I think you're right. And I'm glad you talked about this as an investment. I got a definition to read for you. It's a sunk cost. In economics and business decision making, a sunk cost, also known as a retrospective cost, is a cost that has already incurred and cannot be recovered. Sunk costs are contrasted with prospective costs, which are future costs that may be avoided if action is taken. In other words, a sunk cost is a sum paid in the past that is no longer relevant to decisions about the future. If nothing changes, Deshaun Watson right now is a sunk cost to this team. Why not make decisions about the future right now?
because we also know how Cleveland is, and we know how as soon as someone else gets a hold of this guy, he'll miraculously turn into 2020 Joe Flacco. There's always that PTSD aspect of it. But I also think there's a time and place for it on the business side. Um, you know, there's a big money opportunity coming up next week. That's why I'm so mad about it, Max. That's why it's gonna hurt. It's gonna piss me off if they bring back Nick Chubb because that place is gonna sell out, and it's only gonna sell out for that one reason and one reason only. And sometimes pieces move that certain way, and the next opportunity that will come will probably be in a month once that Nick Chubb juice wears off, and you see that he's not getting 17, 18, 20 carries a game, and then you'll need that 5 energy. So you got about, I would say, you say, when do we see Jameis? I think your next opportunity after the Nick Chubb one is probably next in line. So you're not gonna put people in the seats to fire by Dorsey or calling the plays. That's not
Yeah.
gonna bring in a full house. You get Jameis Winston that call. You're playing out this season and you're capitalizing your dollar every way throughout the next month and a half, 2 months. And then at that point, if Jameis turns it around, you got playoff money coming in.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, if you talk about it in the business aspect, I give it one more month before we see J-Bo.
One more month. I'm glad we're on the same page that it's unless something changes. And I think I think you and I are probably two of the most positive Deshaun Watson on field play people in the world. Like we all want to see him succeed. We want to see him play as the $230 million
Mhm.
quarterback for Cleveland Browns. Like we want to see that. But if nothing changes, and nothing has changed since week one, really, there's been flashes. It's a matter of time. I think it's a matter of when, not if nothing changes, which is important to note. But as we look ahead to the Philadelphia Eagles, offensively, like we talked about, the Browns have at least some type of advantage in the secondary. I hate to bring Baker Mayfield up after talking about the quarterbacks, but Baker ripped them to shreds 2 weeks ago, 347 yards. Kirk Cousins played a pretty clean game against them. Jordan Love played solid against them. Susceptible through the air, okay on the ground. The Browns aren't going to run the ball much. We know that unless Nick Chubb is back, which we don't think is going to be the case. On the other side of the ball, the Eagles are getting back A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And you watch the Eagles play the first few games of the year. It's been ugly. That defense has been really bad. I talked about that. But offensively, it's just been inconsistent. And now you have Saquon Barkley. You add that to the mix, those two elite receivers, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, who hasn't been playing great, but he hasn't had his top two receivers in and out of the lineup really since week one. What do the Browns need to do to stop that pass attack?
We talked about it last week. The front four is where it starts. It's the reason why you have an advantage. If you can rush four and create pressure, you'll be at a two times the advantage because of how good your corners and your secondaries are. I think this is a perfect opportunity and a perfect get right game for our boy Martin Emerson. I think if anybody's gonna get the respect and give you the respect, they're gonna be like, oh, okay. So it's not like he was just going up against Terry McLaurin and
Mhm.
Brown and McCaffrey. You know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah.
going up against arguably the best duo in the league right now. So I think this is a and AJ Brown's a physical guy, bigger
Yeah.
specimen. It would match up well. I
Yes.
think if you're going to take away Devontae Smith, you know he can get slippery in there. Greg Newsom's going to be a big game for Greg Newsom, I think, as well, because he'll be in that slot a lot. So this is going to be a huge game for that secondary. And I think it starts by not putting them in a zone, not having them 7 to 8 yards off the ball like they've been doing these past few weeks, and having them pressed up and letting your front four try to create some type of pressure
Yeah.
because, that's where we're at our best.
Eagles' offensive line is pretty good too. I know they lost Jason Kelsey, but they can keep Jalen Hurts upright. This is the best matchup Martin Emerson can have off a bounce back. Like he is a physical corner. He's not afraid to put his hands on you. AJ Brown is the exact opposite in wide receiver form. Like AJ Brown bullies little corners, but the little corners are quicker than him. Other way around, the smaller receivers can bully Martin Emerson. We saw Diami Brown take the top off, but when he faces a bigger guy like that, he's very good. And I think this is a matchup that, again, plays perfectly into a bounce back game for Martin Emerson. On the other side, Devontae Smith is the one for me that, like, if Denzel Ward's on him, I do feel comfortable. He's playing lights out, to be honest with you. He's been playing really, really well since the second half of last year. He had
Hmm.
to step up more with A.J. Brown injured in and out of the lineup towards the very end of the season, too. He is playing really well. And my big thing with this Eagles offense, get home with four. I'm with you. You got to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket. He will turn the ball over if he stays in the pocket. And the Browns, as opportunistic as they were last week, still got to force some more turnovers defensively if they want a chance to win games. He will turn the ball over if you keep him in the pocket. There is no doubt in my mind. You watch what Jaden Daniels did last week. He escaped the pocket like nobody's business. So something's got to change there.
The biggest thing that has to change is you got to tackle. I don't know what happened these past 2 weeks, but we have not been able to tackle anything. And you know, I think a lot of focus will be on Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, rightfully so. But I mean, I think the key here is Saquon. I know we usually tend to do better with higher profile names. I know Derrick Henry doesn't really get off on us like that as much.
Yep.
But Saquon's not Derrick Henry. Saquon's a little bit different. Saquon's playing really good this year,
Mm.
and they're coming off a bye, so fresh legs. This could get time of possession is going to be huge. I can see some of those drives where Philly goes 8 plays, 9 plays, and they chunk off 9 minutes of a drive because Saquon's getting dinks here, Jalen RPO. They're getting those little 3rd and 3 opportunities, and they're just chunking it away. And
Mm-hmm.
if our offense isn't going to be doing anything, this game is going to be long. It's going to be boring. and more than likely it's going to soar under because at this point Philly's just going to want to try to get out of here and boost their morale into the next week because they're not having the best of times themselves.
Yeah, coming off of a bye too. I'm glad you brought that up. It's so hard to go on the road, beat a team that can at least control one end of the line of scrimmage, the offensive line against the Browns defensive line, and go win after they've had an extra week off. And there is no team that needed an extra week off to get healthy like the Philadelphia Eagles did, because they are getting both their star receivers back healthier on the defensive side of the ball. Like, this is, for a lot of different reasons, probably the toughest task the Browns are going to face this season. This matchup, that tackling has to be paramount. Tackling should be paramount every week, but like, Saquon Barkley is a guy who will break a tackle and bounce it for an additional 20, or, you know,
House it.
go through the hole, slip a couple arm tackles, put his foot in the ground, and whip it to the outside for 50 yards to the end zone. Like, that's a guy you got to get on the ground first or second attempt, and you got to rally to the football too. A.J. Brown is unbelievable after the catch. Dallas Goedert is a very athletic tight end. You got to keep those guys down. You got to keep them at least contained. I think it comes down to red zone defense again. I think the Eagles will move the ball. I think they will get into the red zone. If you're the Browns, can you hold them to 3? That's the only chance the Browns have of keeping this game close. They got to avoid 7s and keep them to 3. Last week, it wasn't great. Obviously, JOK had the pick in the red zone, but they were taking it to the Browns in the red zone, and it was all on the ground, or mostly on the ground too. So that I am fascinated to see. I'm fascinated to see if the Eagles take a page out of their book, Commander's book last week, with the quarterback-driven run stuff, which they already do, but feel like they have an advantage in that. We'll see. I don't know. This game scares me from a defensive standpoint from the Browns. I don't know about you. I am not super optimistic about the outcome of it.
I don't know if I'm optimistic about it, but I do have a couple ideas of where it needs to go and who needs to have the impact. This feels like one of those Grant and Delpit JOK games. We know them to explode gaps and to disrupt plays and get TFLs. I feel like this is going to be one of those games where you got to know where Saquon is at all times, and if you can do that and you can fill up these gaps, you're going to give your secondary a great opportunity to go out there and just let them be who they are. And ultimately, that's what you want. And I think that's what Schwartz wants. He mentioned, I think I saw a clip of him where he talked about that play where Martin Emerson did get beat by Brown on that touchdown. And he said he's got to do a better job of getting more help over top. So the safety plays are going to be huge this week, along with stopping that run game. And just don't let Saquon beat you in both aspects.
Yeah.
If he's going to beat you in one, that's fine. But don't let him beat you in both, because then you're seeing Devontae Adams go for 60 on a deep. Like the explosive, Roddy McLeod talked about it on 92.3. He's on there every Tuesday, I believe. Great stuff, too. If you guys love the insight on the locker room and stuff, they're not afraid to ask him the questions. He gives you some good stuff. And he talked about the keys this week is going to be eliminating explosive plays. And they've got a lot of guys that can do it. So optimism, I don't know. I'm just ready to get this week over with.
I am 100% with you. I'm ready for the Browns to come back home too. They've been on the road enough.
What's the energy gonna be like, you think? If we lose, bro.
If the Browns lose, it's not going to matter if Nick Chubb is back. And you're right in saying, from a business standpoint, they are. I don't know if they're banking on it, but I think we'd be lying if we said they didn't know that was a possibility.
That's why I'm going to be so furious. Like, if anything, just trot Chubb out this week and give him 3 carries.
Yes.
Like, at the very least, get it over with and don't let it look like you're scheming the pockets out of your fans, bro. Because that's I've been on this for a week and a half, 2 weeks, bro. And I'm telling you, I'm going to be on it. I'm making videos on it. Like, you money hungry son of, like, I'm going to do it because that's so disrespectful,
Sure.
bro. That's,
yeah.
If any, like, Chubb took all this, he took a pay cut for you. He did all of this stuff for you. And now you're going to use him to capitalize on our crappy season? Man, come on, man. Y'all, that's pathetic.
I'm with you. And part of me does wonder if it's Chubb's wish to come back at home. But even if that's the case, like, who cares? Like, who truly cares? You come back this week, because the first week he comes back, he's not going to eclipse 10. He's not going to eclipse 10 touches. Not even care, just touches. That's not going to happen.
I don't know. See, here's the thing. Now, there's one part of me that can always find optimism in Nick. I will always find optimism in Nick Chubb. Part of me feels like Nick Chubb's gonna peel one off on the very first carry. He's gonna do something Nick Chubb esque, and they're going to be forced. There, if Nick Chubb goes 3 carries for 30 yards, and that's the only carries he get, you can't afford that PR nightmare. Not
No.
with everything going on right now. So I'm with you. I don't think that we've talked about this every week. I don't think he gets the carries, but we're also talking about Nicholas Jamal,
Yeah.
and we talk about a guy who got 3 carries for 90 something yards or 120 something yards. How iconic and how Batman like would it be if first carry he goes 1 carry for 40 yards?
Mhm.
Could you imagine they don't give him another touch after
Oh,
that? Oh my goodness, this place would. Oh my, I can only
I
imagine.
can't imagine. Yeah, yeah, and it's Stefanski and that coaching staff has done it when he's been fully healthy, no injury, where he's remember that Pittsburgh game very and I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago, very end of the season where Chubb was averaging like 8 yards a carry in the first half, yanked him, pulled him. Like it
Washington, I remember for sure.
yeah, it's happened. Like I'm not telling Browns fans to expect it, but just know it has happened. And the reality with Nick Chubb, there's going to be reason for optimism when Chubb comes back, just because he's that good. Like he will make plays, but there's going to be a negative point in this where you're like, all right, this guy is healthy. He's averaging 7 yards a carry, and we haven't had a run game all year. Why the hell are you pulling him? Like it's
I
going to get
just
to a point like that.
At this point, it's like, bro, he should be touching the ball 20 times a game.
Yeah,
Like
if he's healthy. Yeah.
you've been trying to preserve Nick Chubb. I think all of the preserving is done. He's coming off 2 of the most gruesome injuries. I think if anything, if Chubb, you want to talk about Chubb's wishes, I think if anything, coach, right, let's go
Let him
win.
play. Yeah.
Ride me. Like if you got to give me the ball 30 times and run my knees into the ground if it means getting a W, let's go freaking do it.
Yeah.
And I could see Chubb being like, coach, come on. Like this would be the year, if anything, because haven't you've seen Nick Chubb come out of shell a little bit more each year,
Yes.
and I would love to just see that camera go over to the sideline and just be like, coach, and you see him put his hands up or something where he's not agreeing with what coach for pulling
Yep.
him. That would just, oh man, that would make me happy. I
Yeah.
would love
That
it.
that I think all Browns fans just want to see some I don't even know if you want to see emotion out of Nick Chubb, but like you want to see that because there's a maybe not a divide, but there's a pretty common consensus amongst everybody in Cleveland that something has to change on the coaching end, whatever that may look like. Everybody has their own opinions, but something's got to change. The passive nature of the Cleveland Browns offensively has to change. If that takes Chubb going throwing his hands up on the sidelines, like, why am I not getting the ball? That would fire Browns fans up like
Oh
you
my
wouldn't believe.
gosh. That would fire up the team. Could you imagine if
No, I
but that's what this team had last year. I really need to go back and see if it was on the episode where I talked to D'Anthony Bell or was it Alex Wright or somewhere. Someone said on the sideline, it was like when Joe was on that sideline, you never felt like you were out because the way that he just carried himself, the way that he
yep,
talked to the team, the way that he did that, like as much as we want to try to back forward, he don't do that.
no.
And that's something that this team needs on that offensive side of the ball. I think you can find it on the defensive side, but this offense is missing that leadership, man.
They really are. They really are, and I'm fascinated to see if Chubb can step up in that aspect, if Jameis gets in, if he steps up in that aspect. Offensively, though, like we talked about top 5 rounds. I'm trying to think if I go through my top 10, like where an offensive player would be, because you got the 5 that you mentioned: Hopkins, Dalvin Tomlinson. I mean, Grant Delpit's playing great.
I was gonna say
He's
Grant
playing
Delpit's in there.
really, really well. I mean, maybe you throw Judy at 9, but like even then, nobody is stepping up in the production aspect or the leadership aspect offensively to make us think, yeah, this guy's important to the team right now. Nobody.
I think one guy that's kind of going under the radar. I don't think he's been great, but he hasn't been bad. He's been par or slightly above, and maybe slightly below, and that's Devin Bush. He's
Mm,
had some pretty good games as far as tackles. I know he's had uh and I'm not trying to raise the bar higher than it should be, but a lot of people thought Devin Bush was going to be a liability out there. You're not looking over every week and being like, "Oh my God, Devin Bush!
yeah,
Oh my God, another play by Devin Bush." You may get one, here and there, but he hasn't been as bad as what people suspected that he would be. So he could be a player that's maybe in that conversation, but it's just been so bad all across the board that there's been more better players Number 57. Who's number 57? McGuire?
Yeah.
That's not McGuire, is it? He's been fantastic on special teams. Dude's been unreal. Like, it's amazing that our special teams is getting more, love than the offense, which is ridiculous.
It shouldn't be like that. But even then, we just talked about adding another player to top 10. Boom, defense. Offense got to figure it out. Let's talk score predictions for this game. I don't know. We talked the total. Total's a little interesting. Deshaun Watson passing yards. I mean, we probably are on the same page there, regardless of how well he plays. If he throws the ball 40 times a game or 40 times this game, he's probably going to be okay. But overall score prediction, I don't know. I think hot take. I think this is the week the Browns score 20 points, but I don't think they're going to even come close to winning this game.
They got the spread at 9.5. I think we talked about it off of the air. This could be a trap game, man. Whether it be money line, I saw the money line at one point. It was plus 333 for the Browns. They're now sitting at plus 380. Like, it's just sinking. This has trap written all over. At the very least, as much as we feel like it'll probably feel like a blowout, I think the 9.5 is good. You want to talk about a score, man? I don't know, bro. You said this is a hot take. You think we can score 20? I feel like it's not. I feel like we're gonna have to take a bit smaller step than that. The offense is gonna look serviceable, but we're gonna have 19 points or something, just something that's enough to piss us off. That's like, why couldn't we just capitalize, or like 2 touchdowns and get called back or something? So give me 21-15.
Ooh.
In a kicker's duel.
Interesting.
Browns.
Whoa. Wow.
I'm not going. I can't be that guy, man. Like, one of these weeks I'm gonna be right, but this feels like trap, man. I don't know why. The energy that I saw from Deshaun was a lot different than the past few weeks. You got that adrenaline rush that is Nick Chubb on the horizon. I think Amari Cooper is still saying that he's riding with for. There's a lot of guys that are still back and forth, and I think this defense is biting to get something going. And I think, if anything, they're this close every week to putting more points up on the board.
Yeah.
They put some points up last week. They put some points up against Vegas. They're this close to doing it again. So I think, if anything, this team's going to turn around. It's going to start with our defense. So give me a kicker's duel with our defense, man.
I like that. I think defense are going to be paramount. I think there's going to be turnovers on both sides of the ball. I think this is not a carbon copy, but it reminds me so much of the Eagles' Week 1 game against Green Bay, where they were turning the ball over in horrendous positions. I don't think it's going to be this game where the offense is marched down the field every single time. I think it's going to be a moderately close game where you turn the ball over in bad spots, whether that's in your own area or in the red zone, and you just try to rip your hair out from both fans' perspectives really all game. Because I think even last week, Commanders fans will admit, first, for the majority of the first half until the very last touchdown, they were ripping their hair out. Like, Jaden Daniels threw a pick in the red zone. They fought like it was a brutal game to watch. I think that's going to be the case, but I think there's more points. I do think the Eagles win this game. I hate to admit it, but I do think they do. And then that 9.5 line is literally perfect. I'm going to go 30-20 Philadelphia. I do think the Browns score 20 points, but I'm going 30-20 Eagles.
Oh man, you're I mean, you must be envisioning the nightmare that is Monday. That next day, I just can't. It's been so bad. Look, I can't even spit out the words. It's been so bad these past 2 weeks, bro. If we lose again, man, Monday is going to be Halloween.
Yeah,
it is really going to be Halloween.
And the thing is, if they lose and they score 20 points, that won't be as bad as people think. That's the moral victory everybody's looking for.
And it can't even be a moral. No, you know why it won't be a moral victory? Because Dustin Hopkins will have 3 field goals, the defense will have a touchdown, and the offense wouldn't have done anything.
Yeah. Wow. If that happens, I don't even know what you do at that point. Maybe you make the change. But the change, it's like the inevitable change everybody's looking for is the quarterback switch. But there's going to be a huge change going into next week, at least that we think about, and it's going to be that Nick Chubb is back. Like you said 15 minutes ago, perfectly. You'll ride that high for 3-4 weeks, and then if it's really bad, you can ride the Jameis high for 3-4 weeks. then the season's almost over. Like, that's the reality the Browns are facing right now.
Man, also another reality, taking the optimistic look at it, you're one game away from having an outlook of the way that the schedule looks. Like, we're sitting here now and we can't find 4 wins, but if we beat this team, and depending on how we beat this team, we know how we play the Bengals.
Yeah.
AFC North is still a separate season, despite whatever the hell the record says. You can throw that out the window. When you go up against the AFC North opponent, it's different football, and you can't tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting here and you're looking and you're like, hey, if this is the team that you're gonna get, it's setting up for some Vegas like stuff right here. So this is, I talked about how this was the biggest season of the year. This is now the biggest game of the year because this is gonna dictate moving forward the outlook for the rest of the year. Because if you lose this week, I'm sorry, you can't get any more. Oh, their playoff, it's done.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah, I am 100% with you, but we try to be as optimistic as possible this week. Maybe the Browns show us something. Who knows? Any final words before we sign off, though, Zay?
Hey, the only Browns win this year was on the road.
Yeah.
As we can look forward to that. Let's go into Philly. Let's handle business. Let's change this aura. Let's give them some positive energy moving into Sunday. Because guess what? As much as they say they don't hear it in the media, they feel it. So let's send them some positive vibes and let's get it done. All right. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go.
All right, guys. We appreciate you hopping on. We will see you next time. Go Browns.